Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Professor Jim with Music Impossible. If this is your first time hearing or seeing us, you can check us out at www.musicimpossible.com to see our full lineup of available courses. Several more are under production, and we look forward to having you over there. Lots of extra resources, including worksheets and quizzes and tests and all sorts of things that are going to help you in your music learning journey. This is module number 1, lesson 14 of our beginning music theory course for middle school, high school, and adults. Today, students, we're going to get into learning about eighth notes, and we're going to add that to our current library of notes we've already learned about, including how to draw the eighth note, how to count the eighth note, and then we're going to dive a little bit into time signatures today as well. Let's head on over to Sibelius. Sibelius is our music notation software, and we use this a lot to demonstrate different concepts. Sibelius is part of the Avid family, which is also responsible for making Pro Tools, which is a really great music production software that we use in our teachings often as well, including we have one course that's under production now that's strictly about learning how to use Pro Tools. And another one that we've started in Sibelius as well on how to use this music notation software. The cool thing about this software is there is a free version available to it. Sibelius First, I believe, is the name of it. And it has some limited capabilities, but if you're just learning how to use this type of software, we encourage you to go ahead and take a look at that. Make sure you check the requirements for the computer. It does take up a significant amount of space because it does have lots of built-in audio features. And so it does take up some room on your hard drive, and you want to make sure that it operates to its full capabilities and that your computer can handle it. Okay, so we're going to go with just a little bit of a review today, and that is we want to make sure we're understanding fully what the parts of our staff are. So we've done a lot of work here recently in grand staffs, and we've understood what braces are and lines are. We've already done a little bit of work with clefs right here. We have our treble clef right there. We've talked about treble clefs, bass clefs. We even had a demo with a percussion clef the other day. And we'll continue to learn more about clefs down the road. There's all kinds of other ones that we can use as well. And later today, we're going to talk about the time signature and what that means. What does 4 and 4 mean? What does 4/4 time? What does that exactly mean? We're going to break that down for you. Today, we're just going to review a couple little things right here. We do have a couple parts of the staff which we're going to discuss here. Right here, we have these lines. We have 3 of them currently on our staff. We call these the bar lines. These are the bar lines. This is what divides up our music. And, bar lines didn't exist for several hundred years. It was only around a period of time after the Middle Ages that music started to be separated to make it easier to read, quite honestly. And so bar lines, right? Bar lines, BARLINES, help us divide the music to make it easier to read. And we also have the space in between the bar lines. The space in between the bar lines, we call this a measure. Measure, M-A-S-U-R-E, measure. Sometimes called a bar. They're interchangeable words. I use them interchangeably often in class. But a bar or a measure means the exact same thing. And the measure is this space here where we put all of our information, our notes, our rhythms, our rests, everything goes in between the bar lines. There's a couple more pieces of the staff. There's more things that we're going to add along the way that tells us different things in the music. But for now, let's go over to eighth notes and learn a little bit about eighth notes. So an eighth note is going to have pieces like we've seen before. Last lesson, we learned about the note head. We learned about the stem that comes off of the note head. Now, an eighth note has a little extra thing. It's this little squiggly piece that comes off of it. We call that the flag. That's the flag of the note. And there's more notes we'll learn down the line that have flags or double flags, triple flags. It can get pretty busy with the flags, but that's another part here. So we have our note head and our stem, and now we have a flag. And we can look at a much neater version of that if we use the actual Sibelius instead of me trying to draw it. Let's take a look at a few eighth notes here. So notice when we have multiple eighth notes, the eighth notes are joined by this extra bar down here that connects multiples of eighth notes. And then we have an eighth note by itself. This is where we have the line and the flag that comes off of it. Now, stems up, stems down, same rule as our last lesson. As soon as that note gets above on or above the third line, the flag or the stem goes down. And when it is below that third line, like for instance, this G, second line G, notice that the stem gets flipped and it goes up. All right, so now that we know what an eighth note looks like, let's start to learn how to count. Now I've come over here and I'm going to add a grand staff here, and we're going to start off with our 4 quarter notes here at G in the treble clef. And this is our beat, right? We're going to have 4 quarter notes per measure, and then once we get to 4, we start over again. And if we review how to count that, we had 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when we have a new measure, we would start again in 1. And as soon as we get to 4, we start over again. Now, an eighth note is essentially half the length of a quarter note. So if a quarter note gets a beat, bum, 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 an eighth note would be twice as fast. So there are 2 eighth notes per quarter note. They are exactly cut in half of a quarter note. So if I have 4 quarter notes per measure in 4/4 time, I'm going to have 8 eighth notes, because we're going to have 2 eighth notes for every quarter note. So this is what this looks like in real life here. So we have a whole bar of eighth notes down here, and you can see Sibelius does a really good job of lining these up. This G and this C right here lines up quite nicely. And notice there's no note above this second C in the bass clef. That's because these 2 eighth notes take up the same amount of time as this 1 quarter note. But this quarter note and this eighth note are going to line up. This one does not, because it happens in between. This is going to line up with that quarter note, and this eighth note is going to line up with that quarter note. So how do we count that? Just like any other measure, the first note is always going to be 1. Now after that, what do we do in between 1 and 2? We have to call it something, and we use and, or a plus symbol, and that means and. So we have 1 and. Well, now we're back to count 2, right? You see how it lines up with the quarter note above it? So that's just count 2. And then we have another and then count 3, and then and again, count 4, and we end with and. That accounts for every one of these eighth notes. So if we're counting quarter notes as 1, 2, 3, 4, we would count our eighth notes as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And when they line up together, it sounds like this. Beat, bum, bum, bum is our beat or our tempo. And the eighth note is counted as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So now that we know the basics of counting eighth notes, let's write a little melody here and learn how to count that with other types of rhythms as well. So we have to mix in our knowledge of quarter notes, half notes, dotted half notes, and whole notes along with our eighth notes now. So let's see, let's write a little melody here. I don't know, let's have a quarter note C, and then let's do half note D. What does that sound like? Nice. Let's repeat that. Except this time we'll have a quarter note followed by, let's just have quarter note there followed by that quarter note there. And then let's do D and C. All right, little 3 measure melody here. What does that sound like? Okay, nice little 3 measure melody there. How do we count this? So every measure, just like before, always starts with the number 1. No matter what the note is, just put a 1 there and you're off to a good start. We learned that the second eighth note that's not on a beat, we call that and, 1 and. This quarter note is going to take up 1 full beat, so that'll take up the entire number 2, the second beat of this measure. And we know half notes get 2 counts, so that's going to be counts 3 and 4. Now this second measure here, pretty similar. We have 1 and 2. The difference here is instead of a half note, we have 2 quarter notes. So this quarter note's going to get all of beat 3. This quarter note will get all of beat 4, and then we're off to the next one. Beginning of the measure always starts with 1. This half note's going to get 2 counts, counts 1 and 2, and this half note will get counts 3 and 4. So that's basically how we're going to count eighth notes. It can get a little bit more complicated than that. All right, let's have a little bit of fun here with the bass clef. Let's write a little melody here as well. Let's see, we'll start with a quarter note, followed by another quarter note, and then we'll do 2 eighth notes, and then we'll repeat that measure just for fun. And then let's see. All right, we'll do something like that. See what that sounds like all together. All right, just a little melody. Let's go ahead and take a look at this bass clef line. You're going to have an assignment this week where you'll have a treble and bass clef line similar to this, and you'll have to count the eighth notes, quarter notes, half notes, maybe a whole note there, maybe a dotted half note, who knows. Be prepared for all the things. And here we are. So we're going to start with count 1. Always start with count 1. And then we're going to go to the second quarter note. It's going to get all of count 2. Now we're off to count 3. And we have 2 eighth notes here. So we're going to have 3 and this last quarter note is going to get all of count 4. Exact same measure here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next measure, so we have 4 eighth notes in a row. Remember, if we have multiple eighth notes, we might connect them with a longer bar here. And so we're going to have 1 and 2, and here's our half note. It's going to get 3 and 4, counts 3 and 4 there. Now let's add one more measure here. We'll have maybe a whole note C and also a whole note C here. And if we count those, pretty easy. It's a whole note. It's going to get all 4 counts in both bars here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right. So what does that sound like all together? And a cool thing to do here is once you have it worked out, you can sing along. If you're not a singer, that's okay. You can just say the 1s, ands, 2s, 3s, ands, 4s. And so like if I were to just say along this top line and I play, let's see, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, stop. And now I can come back and do the bass clef the same way. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. So practice counting out loud like that helps a lot. If you find a way to get Sibelius first, get signed up for that, get that downloaded, you can start creating your own melodies. I know that's something we're going to be adding into module 2 of this class, is to make sure everybody gets into Sibelius first if they can. You'll be able to take the class without it, but it's one of those cool pieces of software that it's really fun to learn. All right, so that's how we count eighth notes, and we're going to do a follow-up lesson to this where we're just going to focus on time signatures. So stay tuned for lesson 14A coming up right after this one.